The command ship Eternal Conquest moved through space like a predator swimming through dark water. It was massive, stretching nearly 10 kilometers from front to back, and it carried enough firepower to turn a small moon into dust. Behind it, thousands of warships followed in perfect formation. The Imperial fleet had arrived at the edge of a new solar system. Admiral stood on the bridge, his gray skin reflecting the blue light of holographic displays around him. He had lived for 300 years and conquered 40 worlds in that time. His tall, thin body was covered in scars from battles long past. To him, this mission was routine. Another planet, another conquest, another mark on his perfect record. The Empire had invaded 487 worlds across 3 galaxies. They had failed only once, on a strange planet where the native creatures had natural immunity to their weapons. That single failure haunted the Empire's pride. Their success rate stood at 99.8% and intended to keep it that way. "Show me the target," commanded. A hologram appeared before him, a small blue planet with white clouds and large oceans. It orbited a medium-sized yellow star along with 7 other planets. The display labeled it with the native name, Earth. "Initial scans complete, Admiral," reported Subcommander, a younger officer with smooth skin and eager eyes. "The dominant species calls themselves humans. They have primitive technology, nuclear fission, basic satellites. They have sent machines to nearby planets but have only walked on their single moon." Made a sound of dismissal. "Category 2 threat, minimal resistance expected." "Yes, Admiral. Their weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Their ships cannot match our speed. Standard conquest protocol should be sufficient." Nodded slowly. He had heard these reports hundreds of times before. Every planet thought they were special. Every species believed they could resist. None of them could. They had perfected the art of conquest over 10,000 years. They knew exactly how to break a world. "How many of them are there?" asked. "Approximately 8 billion, Admiral." "Excellent, the harvest will be plentiful. Prepare the fleet for standard planetary approach. We move in 3 cycles." Far below, on the blue planet called Earth, a woman named Park sat in front of a computer screen at the Korean Space Research Institute. It was late at night, and the office was empty except for her. She liked working at night. The silence helped her think. Was 34 years old, with tired eyes and messy hair she had forgotten to brush that morning. She had spent her entire adult life studying the stars, searching for signs of life beyond Earth. Most of her colleagues thought she was wasting her time. The universe was too big, they said. The chances too small. But never stopped looking. Her computer beeped, an anomaly near Jupiter's orbit. She leaned forward, adjusting her glasses, and examined the data. Strange energy readings. Probably instrument error, she thought. The old sensors were always glitching. She was about to dismiss it when the readings. One anomaly became 10, 10 became 100, 100 became 1,000. His heart began to beat faster. She ran diagnostic after diagnostic, checking for errors, checking for explanations. There were none. Something was out there, something big. She reached for her phone with shaking hands and called her supervisor. "Director, you need to come to the Institute right now. I found something. I found them." In orbit around Jupiter, the fleet made final preparations. Soldiers checked their weapons. Pilots ran through landing procedures. The process was mechanical, practiced countless times before. In the lower decks, a young soldier named looked out a small window at the blue planet in the distance. He had joined the military only 2 years ago and had never seen actual combat. The invasions he had participated in were mostly just parades. The enemy species always surrendered after the first show of force. "Nervous?" asked his squad leader, a battle-hardened female named. "A little," admitted. "What if they fight?" Laughed. "They always think they will fight at first. Then they see our ships, our weapons, our numbers. Then they understand. No species has ever successfully resisted the Empire. This planet will be no different. What happens to them after, the natives? His expression darkened slightly. They serve the Empire, one way or another. On Earth, the next 48 hours were chaos. Discovery spread through government channels like wildfire. Emergency meetings were called in every major capital. Scientists confirmed her findings with their own instruments. The objects near Jupiter were real. They were artificial, and they were moving toward Earth. At the United Nations, world leaders gathered in emergency session. Arguments broke out about what to do. Some wanted to attempt communication. Others wanted to prepare for war. Many simply refused to believe what was happening. In Seoul, Captain sat in a military briefing room, watching the same data that had discovered hours before. He was 40 years old, a fighter pilot with 20 years of experience. He had trained his whole life for combat but never truly expected to see it. Korea had been at peace for decades. "We don't know their intentions," the general was saying, "but we must prepare for the worst." Studied the images on the screen. Thousands of ships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. His stomach twisted with fear, but his hands remained steady. Fear was normal. What mattered was what you did with it. "What are our orders, sir?" he asked. The general looked at him with heavy eyes. "For now, we wait, and we pray they come in peace." They did not come in peace. 3 days later, the fleet entered Earth's orbit. Their ships positioned themselves above every major city on the planet, blocking out the sun and casting shadows over millions of terrified people. In Seoul, Tokyo, New York, London, Beijing, and 100 other cities, humans looked up at the sky and saw the end of everything they knew. Admiral broadcast a message to the entire planet. The translation software converted his words into every human language simultaneously. "People of Earth, your planet now belongs to the Empire. You will surrender all weapons. You will submit to processing. Resistance is not possible. Cooperation will be rewarded. Defiance will be punished. You have one rotation of your planet to comply." In living rooms and offices and streets around the world, 8 billion humans heard the message. Most felt despair. Some felt anger. A few, in military bases and government bunkers, began to plan. The invasion had begun, and humanity faced its darkest hour. Admiral had expected panic. He had expected chaos. He had expected desperate messages begging for mercy. Instead, the humans went silent. Their communications networks continued to function, but no surrender came. No pleas for negotiation, just silence. "Perhaps they did not understand the message," Sub-Commander suggested. "They understood," replied. His eyes narrowed as he studied the planet below. "They are deciding how to respond. Send the scout ships to major population centers. Show them our power. Sometimes primitive species need a demonstration." 100 scout ships descended through Earth's atmosphere. Each ship was small by standards, only 200 meters long, but they were fast and deadly. They spread across the globe, flying low over cities, their engines screaming through the air. In Seoul, 3 scout ships flew over the Han River, their shadows passing over millions of watching eyes. People ran. People screamed. Some simply stood and stared, too shocked to move. Captain was already in the air. His orders were simple: observe and report. Do not engage. The enemy's capabilities were unknown. Human weapons were likely useless. His commanders wanted information, not dead pilots. Understood the logic. He was a military man. He followed orders. But when he saw the scout ship fly over his city, over his home, over the apartment where his mother still lived, something inside him broke. Not broke in a weak way. Broke in the way that releases something stronger underneath. He turned his F-35 toward the nearest scout ship and pushed his engines to maximum speed. "Captain, what are you doing?" his wing commander shouted over the radio. "You are ordered to maintain distance." "They're over my home," replied calmly. "They're threatening my people. I'm going to show them we're not afraid." He locked his missiles on the scout ship and fired. The missiles struck the shields and exploded harmlessly, just as predicted, just as everyone said would happen. The alien ship was untouched, but was not finished. He pushed his fighter directly at the scout ship, accelerating beyond safe limits. Warning alarms screamed in his cockpit. His body pressed back against the seat as G-forces crushed his chest. The pilot did not expect this. Why would anyone fly directly into certain death? It made no sense. It violated every rule of combat logic. His fighter struck the scout ship at the exact moment its shields cycled through a recharge phase. It was blind luck, a 1 in a million chance. The human jet tore through the alien hull like a bullet through paper. Both ships fell from the sky, trailing fire and smoke. They crashed into the Yellow Sea in a massive explosion of water and metal. Rescue teams found 2 hours later floating in the water, barely alive. His legs were broken, his ribs were shattered, but he was breathing. The pilot was dead. News of the incident spread across Earth within minutes. The first alien killed by a human, the first proof that they could bleed, the first crack in their image of invincibility. Admiral received the report with cold fury. 1 scout ship lost, 1 pilot dead, killed by a primitive in a primitive machine through a suicide attack that should have been impossible. "It means nothing," he declared to his officers. "A lucky accident. These creatures are desperate and foolish. Continue the invasion." But deep in his mind, a small doubt began to form, a doubt he quickly pushed away. In a Naval Command Center Lieutenant Commander watched the footage of this attack over and over again. She was 31 years old, a tactical analyst known for seeing patterns others missed. Her commanders called her brilliant. Her colleagues called her obsessive. She studied every frame of the alien ship's destruction. She analyzed the energy readings, the shield fluctuations, the exact timing of impact. "There," she whispered to herself, "the shields have a rhythm, a pattern." She began to write her findings in a report. If she was right, this information could change everything. The aliens were not invincible. Their technology followed rules. Rules could be understood, and anything that could be understood could be defeated. Across Earth, the invasion continued. Ground troops landed in major cities, their armor gleaming, their weapons humming with deadly energy. They expected the humans to flee or surrender. Many did flee, many did die, but some fought back. In the mountains outside Seoul, a young sergeant named Han led her squad into the forests. She was 28 years old, small and quick, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Her specialty was guerrilla tactics, fighting stronger enemies through speed and surprise. "We can't beat them in open combat," she told her soldiers. "So we won't fight in the open, we hide, we watch, we learn, and when we know their weaknesses, we strike." Her squad disappeared into the wilderness, the first of many resistance groups that would spring up across the planet. In underground bunkers, scientists worked frantically to understand the alien technology. Every scrap of debris from the fallen scout ship was collected and studied. Doctor, a physicist with wild hair and wilder ideas, led the research team. "Their technology is advanced," she announced to her colleagues, "but it's not magic. It follows physical laws. Different laws than we expected, but laws nonetheless. Give me time and I will find their weaknesses." The first week of the invasion passed. Then the second. They controlled the skis and the major cities, but they did not control the planet. Humans continued to resist in ways large and small. They sabotaged supply lines. They ambushed patrols. They refused to submit. Admiral looked at the casualty reports with growing frustration. 112 soldiers dead, 37 vehicles destroyed, 2 more scout ships lost to improvised explosive devices. "These numbers are unacceptable," he growled. "On any other world, resistance would have collapsed by now. What is wrong with these creatures? Sub-Commander hesitated before answering. Sir, our analysts have noticed something unusual. Human psychology appears to be different from other species we have conquered. They do not calculate odds the way we do. They fight even when fighting is illogical. That is stupidity, not strength. Perhaps, Admiral, but stupidity can be difficult to defeat. Dismissed the comment with a wave of his hand. But later that night, alone in his quarters, he thought about it more deeply. He had conquered 40 worlds. He had never seen anything like this. These humans did not know they were supposed to lose. And somehow that made them dangerous. In a hospital bed in Seoul, Captain woke from surgery to find himself a hero. His face was on every screen. His name was on every tongue. People called him the first warrior of Earth, the man who proved humans could fight back. A reporter asked him through the hospital window, "Captain, why did you do it? Why did you attack when you knew you couldn't win?" Thought for a moment before answering. His voice was weak, but his words were clear. Because someone had to be first. Someone had to show them we won't go quietly. Now everyone knows. We can hurt them, and if we can hurt them, we can beat them. The interview was broadcast worldwide. And in homes and shelters and hiding places across the planet, 8 billion humans heard the message. Hope was not dead. The fight was just beginning. 3 weeks into the invasion, and Earth should have fallen. Every computer model said so. Every historical example proved it. They had crushed stronger civilizations in less time, but Earth refused to follow the pattern. Deep beneath the streets of Seoul, in a bunker that had been built for a war that never came, Doctor worked without sleep. Her eyes were red. Her hands trembled from too much coffee. Papers covered every surface around her, filled with equations and diagrams that would have confused the greatest scientists of the previous generation. She was close, she could feel it. The alien shields operated on principles humanity had never imagined. They bent space itself, creating a bubble of altered physics around every vehicle and soldier. Conventional weapons could not penetrate because they existed in normal space, while the shield existed in something else entirely. But had noticed something, a rhythm, a pulse. The shields aren't constant, she announced to her exhausted team. They cycle. Every 0.7 seconds there's a gap, a tiny moment when the shield refreshes. It lasts only 12 milliseconds, but it exists. Her assistant, a young man named, looked up from his own calculations. 12 milliseconds. That's not enough time to do anything. Not with our current weapons, agreed. But what if we could synchronize an attack with the gap? What if we knew exactly when to strike? She began to design a targeting system. It would need to be precise beyond anything humans had built before. But precision was just engineering. Engineering could be solved. Within 48 hours, the first prototype was ready. Within a week, the design was shared with every military on Earth. The news reached Lieutenant Commander in the command bunker inn. She read the technical specifications 3 times, her mind already racing with tactical possibilities. "This changes everything," she said to General Oh, who had taken command of Korea's remaining forces. "If we can penetrate their shields even briefly, we can hurt them, really hurt them." The general was a large man with a face carved from stone. He had led soldiers for 30 years and had seen things no man should see. But he had never faced an enemy from another world. "How do we use this?" he asked. Pulled up a holographic map of the region. "Their supply lines are the key. They've set up distribution centers here, here, and here." She pointed to 3 locations. "They bring in resources from orbit, process them, and send them out to their ground forces. Cut the supply lines, and their soldiers on the ground become isolated. And isolated soldiers can be defeated." "Exactly." The general nodded slowly. "Begin planning the operation. Coordinate with whatever allies we have left. In the mountains of province, Sergeant Han led her guerrilla unit on a mission that military experts would later call impossible. They had been watching a patrol for days, learning their routines, studying their equipment. The aliens were creatures of habit. They followed the same paths at the same times. They checked their sensors in the same sequence. They even took breaks at predictable intervals. "They've never fought an enemy like us," explained to her soldiers. "They don't know how to adapt because they've never needed to. That's their weakness. They're too perfect." The attack came at dawn. S team had planted explosives along the patrol route, timed to detonate during the shield refresh cycle. The new targeting system worked. For the first time, human explosives actually damaged armor. 3 alien soldiers fell in the initial blast. The remaining 5 scattered, confused by an attack that should have been impossible. Squad emerged from hiding and engaged with small arms fire, keeping the aliens pinned while a second team moved into position. Within 7 minutes it was over, 8 soldiers dead, 1 captured alive. The prisoner was transported to a secure location and handed over to the scientists. Dr. Park, who had first detected the fleet weeks ago, led the examination team. She had never imagined she would be dissecting an actual alien, but the universe had stopped making sense on the day the ships appeared. "Their biology is carbon-based like ours," she reported. "But there are significant differences. They're adapted to higher gravity and lower light levels. Their skin contains a pigment that absorbs ultraviolet radiation." "Absorbs it?" asked. She had joined the examination, curious about anything that might be useful. "Yes, they must come from a world with a dimmer sun. UV radiation is probably harmful to them." The 2 scientists looked at each other as the same thought crossed their minds. "Our sun," said slowly, "our sun produces much more UV radiation than theirs must. If we could concentrate it," continued, "weaponize it somehow. UV lasers, UV bombs, devices that strip away their protective atmosphere inside their ships." The idea spread through the scientific community like fire. Within days, new weapons were being designed. Crude weapons by standards, but weapons nonetheless. Weapons that attacked the aliens' fundamental biology. Admiral received the casualty reports with increasing concern. 400 dead in the past week. 20 vehicles destroyed, 3 outposts overrun by human forces. "This is not possible," he said to his officers. "We control the skis. We have superior technology. How are they doing this?" Sub-commander had no good answer. "They learn quickly, Admiral. Every time we change tactics, they adapt. Every time we secure one area, they attack another. It's like fighting water. We push in one place and it flows around to somewhere else. Then we must push harder, request reinforcements from the High Council." His eyes widened. "Admiral, in 10,000 years, we have never needed reinforcements for a Category 2 world." "Request them anyway." The message was sent. The High Council received it with shock and disbelief. Reinforcements for Earth, the primitive planet, what was happening out there? But they sent the reinforcements. 10,000 additional soldiers, 500 more ships. Surely that would be enough to crush these stubborn humans. Back on Earth, received intelligence about the incoming reinforcements. Rather than despair, she smiled. "More ships means more supply lines," she explained to General O. "More supply lines means more targets. They're making themselves more vulnerable, not less." "They don't understand," the general agreed. "They think numbers win wars, but numbers don't beat determination. Numbers don't beat people who have nothing left to lose." In hospitals and refugee camps across the planet, wounded humans recovered and returned to fight. In factories and workshops, workers built weapons around the clock. In schools and community centers, children learned first aid and basic combat skills. The invasion had united humanity in a way nothing else ever had. Old enemies became allies. Ancient grudges were forgotten. For the first time in history, Earth fought as one. And slowly, impossibly, the tide began to turn. They still held the cities. They still controlled the skis. On paper, they were winning. But paper meant nothing. What mattered was the growing pile of alien bodies. What mattered was the fear that had started to spread through the ranks. These humans should have surrendered. They should have accepted defeat. Instead, they fought harder with every passing day. They learned faster. They adapted quicker. They were not supposed to be able to do this. And yet they did. The reinforcements arrived with great ceremony. Admiral watched the new ships take position around Earth, their hulls gleaming in the light of the yellow sun. 10,000 fresh soldiers, 500 warships, enough firepower to crack a continent. Now, he declared, we end this. The new offensive began at dawn. Forces struck simultaneously across 6 continents, their attacks coordinated with military precision. Cities that had held out for weeks fell within hours. Resistance strongholds were obliterated from orbit. The message was clear: submit or die. But humanity had been preparing too. In the underground command center, General O activated the global communication network that resistance forces had built in secret over the past month. It used old technology, fiber optic cables and radio signals that the sensors had overlooked. Primitive, but effective. All units, he announced, Operation Sunrise begins now. Across the world, human forces emerged from hiding, not to fight the alien soldiers directly, but to strike at what mattered most, the supply ships. Doctors' targeting systems had been distributed to every military unit on Earth. Combined with Dr. Park's research on biology, humanity had created weapons specifically designed to hurt the invaders. UV pulse grenades, shield-synchronized missiles, chemical agents that attacked alien nervous systems. Lieutenant Commander coordinated the Pacific Theater from a submarine hidden beneath the waves. She had spent weeks analyzing patrol patterns, identifying weaknesses, planning attack routes. Now all that work came together. Strike teams Alpha through Delta, you are clear to engage Supply Convoy 7, she ordered calmly. Remember, hit them during the shield gap. You'll have less than a second. Make it count. On the surface, human submarines launched missiles at precisely calculated moments. The new weapons tore through shields like they weren't there. 3 supply ships exploded in massive fireballs that lit up the night sky. Similar scenes played out around the world. In Europe, resistance fighters used captured alien weapons to destroy a munitions depot. In Africa, a coordinated assault took out the main processing center for alien food supplies. In South America, guerrilla teams ambushed reinforcement columns and disappeared before the enemy could respond. The battle over the Pacific lasted 18 hours. Humanity lost thousands of soldiers, dozens of ships, countless brave men and women who knew they might not survive but fought anyway. But when the smoke cleared, the supply chain was broken. Admiral received the reports with growing horror. Supply ships destroyed, processing centers overrun, communication lines cut. His reinforced army was suddenly isolated, scattered across a hostile planet with dwindling resources. How, he demanded, how are they doing this? No one had an answer. In the chaos, Captain saw an opportunity. A command ship had crashed in the Philippine Sea during the battle, damaged but not destroyed. Its data cores might still be intact, if humanity could access that information. I'm leading the retrieval team myself, she announced. It's too dangerous, General O argued. We need you here. You need what's in that ship more, their tactical database, their communication codes, maybe even their star maps. This could change everything. The general wanted to refuse, was too valuable to risk. But he saw the determination in her eyes, the same determination he had seen in soldiers throughout history who knew what needed to be done. Take the best team we have, he said finally, and come back alive. The mission was beyond dangerous. Patrols surrounded the crash site. Enemy soldiers still guarded the wreckage. The command ship's internal defenses were still partially active. His team approached underwater, using diving equipment and stolen alien-breathing masks. They reached the ship at midnight, cutting through the damaged hull with plasma torches taken from dead enemies. Inside the ship was a maze of alien technology, strange lights, stranger sounds. Bodies of crew members floated in the flooded corridors. "Data core should be on the command deck," whispered. "Stay close, stay quiet." They moved through the ship like ghosts, avoiding patrols, disabling security systems. Had studied captured alien technology for weeks. She understood their logic, their patterns. She could predict what they would do because she had learned how they thought. The command deck was guarded by 5 soldiers. His team had 7. The fight was short and brutal. 3 humans died, but all 5 aliens fell. Reached the data core with shaking hands. The interface was alien, but the resistance had captured enough technology to create translation devices. She connected her equipment and began downloading. The information that flowed onto her screen was beyond anything she had imagined. Not just tactical data, but history. The complete record of conquests, 487 worlds, methods, strategies, outcomes. And a pattern. "They've never lost," she whispered to herself, scrolling through the records. "In 10,000 years, only one failure, but that failure wasn't combat, it was biological immunity. No species has ever beaten them in a straight fight." She kept reading. Species after species, all with the same story, resistance at first, then despair, then surrender. Every civilization had calculated their odds, realized they couldn't win, and submitted. Every civilization except one. "We're the first," realized. "The first species to keep fighting after we should have lost. They don't know how to handle us because they've never faced anything like us." She downloaded everything, then set charges throughout the ship. As her team evacuated, she triggered the detonation. The command ship disappeared in a blinding explosion. Back at headquarters, the data was analyzed and shared with leaders around the world. What they learned changed their entire strategy. Sergeant Han received the intelligence at her mountain base. She gathered her troops and explained what they were facing. "They have conquered almost 500 worlds," she said. "Not by being the strongest but by being patient. They wait for their enemies to give up. They wait for hope to die." She looked at each of her soldiers in turn. "We will never give up. We will never stop hopping. And we will make them understand that some things cannot be conquered." Using captured communication equipment, broadcast a message to the fleet. The translation was rough, but the meaning was clear. "We know your history. We know you have never lost, but you have never fought humans before. We will burn our own cities before we let you take them. Every one of us who falls will be replaced by 2 more. We have already accepted death. You cannot threaten those who do not fear dying. Leave our world or we will teach you what losing feels like." The message reached Admiral in his command center. He listened to it 3 times, his gray face growing paler with each repetition. "They've accessed our records," Subcommander said quietly. "They know everything." "It doesn't matter what they know," insisted. "We have superior technology, superior numbers." "With respect, Admiral, our supply lines are destroyed, our forces are scattered, and these creatures," he paused, searching for words, "they're not afraid of us. That has never happened before." Said nothing, but for the first time in his 300 years, he felt something cold growing in his chest, something he had thought his species had evolved beyond. Fear. The humans were winning, and he had no idea how to stop them. 6 months after the first ships appeared above Earth, Admiral stood alone on the observation deck of the Eternal Conquest. Below him, the blue planet continued to spin, beautiful and defiant. Above him, what remained of his fleet gathered for departure. They were retreating. The word tasted like poison in his mouth. In 300 years, he had never retreated. In 10,000 years, the Empire had never retreated from a Category 2 world. But the numbers did not lie. 40% of his invasion force was gone, not captured, not missing, gone, destroyed by creatures who had been using wooden boats just a few centuries ago. His supply lines were ashes. His ground forces were isolated and dying. And worst of all, the humans were now building ships. They had taken technology, combined it with their own, and created something new. Crude ships, ugly ships, ships that any engineer would laugh at. But ships that flew, ships that fought, ships that were multiplying every day. Sub-Commander approached carefully. "Admiral, the retreat formation is ready. The High Council is demanding a full report." "I know what they want," did not turn from the window. "They want to know how I failed." "Sir, no one could have predicted." "I predicted it." The admission was quiet, almost a whisper. "After the first week, I knew something was wrong. I felt it, but I ignored it because it made no sense. They had no chance against us. The numbers were clear." "The numbers were clear," agreed. "But numbers don't account for madness." Finally turned to face his subordinate. "That's what they are, you know. Mad. Insane. What rational species fights when they cannot win? What logical creature charges into certain death just to hurt an enemy they cannot defeat?" He thought of Captain, the pilot who had crashed his primitive aircraft into a scout ship. He thought of the guerrilla fighters who had walked into certain death carrying bombs. He thought of the scientists who had worked without sleep for months to find weaknesses in technology. "They don't calculate odds," continued. "They don't weigh costs and benefits. They just fight, like cornered animals, like fire. You cannot reason with fire. You cannot negotiate with it. You can only run from it or be consumed." Was silent for a long moment. "What will you tell the High Council?" "The truth, that we underestimated them, that we treated them like every other species, and they are not like every other species, that they are a threat beyond anything we have faced before." He activated a recording device and began his final report. "To the High Council of the Empire, this is Admiral, Commander of the Earth Invasion Force. I am ordering a full retreat from the Sol system. The indigenous species, known as humans, has proven resistant to standard conquest protocols. Recommendation: classify the Sol system as a quarantine zone. Do not attempt further contact or invasion. These creatures are fundamentally different from any species in our records. They do not respond to superior force with submission. They respond with adaptation and aggression. In 10,000 years, we have faced 487 civilizations. We have failed twice, once due to biological immunity, once due to humans. They are now in possession of our technology. They are learning to build ships. Within a generation, they will have faster-than-light capability. Within a century, they may have weapons to match our own. My recommendation is not merely to avoid their system. My recommendation is to prepare for them, because they will come for us. I have seen their eyes, read their messages, studied their history. They are a species of conquerors. They just haven't looked beyond their world until now. We have given them a reason to look up. May the Empire forgive me. End report. The fleet departed Earth's orbit 3 hours later. Humans around the world watched them go, their long shadows finally lifting from the sky. There were no celebrations. Not yet. Too many had died. Too much had been lost. But there was something else, something new: pride. On the observation deck of the newly established United Earth Defense Council headquarters, Doctor stood beside General O, watching the last alien ships disappear. "They'll be back," she said quietly. The general nodded. "Probably, but we'll be ready. We know their technology now. We know their weaknesses. Next time will be different. Next time we'll meet them in space." Captain, still walking with a limp from his injuries, joined them. He had been promoted 3 times during the war and had turned down each promotion. He just wanted to fly. "We need to build a fleet," he said. "A real fleet, something that can go out there and make sure they never threaten Earth again." "That's a lot of ships," observed. "We have a lot of people who want to fly them." Across the planet, humanity began to rebuild, but they did not rebuild what had been. They built something new. The old nations remained, but they were united now by something stronger than borders. They had faced extinction together. They had survived together. They would grow together. Lieutenant Commander was appointed as the first director of the Stellar Exploration Corps, tasked with developing humanity's first interstellar vessels. She approached the job with the same meticulous attention to detail that had made her Earth's greatest tactical mind. "We're not just building ships," she told her team on the first day. "We're building the future of our species, a future where no one can threaten our home again, a future where we decide our own destiny." Sergeant Han returned to civilian life, but the civilian life she returned to was different. She became a teacher, training a new generation of soldiers and leaders. Her classes were always full. Her students went on to become the backbone of Earth's defense forces. And Dr. Park, the astronomer who had first seen the fleet, returned to her telescope. But now she looked at the stars with different eyes, not with wonder at what might be out there, but with determination to reach it. 50 years later, human ships crossed the boundary of the Sol system for the first time. They were not exploring. They were establishing perimeters, setting up defense stations, making sure that nothing could ever approach Earth undetected again. 100 years later, human vessels were spotted near the edges of space, just watching, just waiting, a reminder. At the Centennial Remembrance Ceremony, the elderly Dr. Park gave the keynote address. Her voice was weak, but her words were strong. 100 years ago, they came to harvest us like cattle. They had conquered hundreds of worlds. They thought we would be easy. They thought we would surrender. They did not understand what humans are. We are not a species that calculates the odds and gives up. We are a species that fights, that adapts, that refuses to accept defeat even when defeat is certain. They left having learned the most important lesson in the universe. Some species are not meant to be conquered. Some species conquer back. Our children are among the stars now. Our ships patrol the darkness. We are no longer victims waiting for the next invasion. We are explorers, defenders, warriors. Let them remember Earth. Let them tell stories about us. Let every species in every galaxy know what happens when you threaten humanity. We were their 0.2%, the only failure in 10,000 years, and we are just getting started. In the halls of the Empire, the story of Earth had become a legend. A cautionary tale told to young officers, a reminder that the universe held dangers beyond their understanding. But it was not only the who told the story. On conquered worlds across 3 galaxies, enslaved populations whispered to each other in the darkness. They spoke of a small blue planet that had done the impossible, a species that had refused to break, a people who had beaten the unbeatable. The whispers spread, hope spread, rebellion sparked and grew. And always, the story began the same way. Have you heard about the humans? The invasion had failed, but something greater had succeeded. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as subjects or slaves, but as equals, as warriors, as the species that had looked at certain death and said no. The fleet had a 99.8% success rate on invasions. Earth was the 0.2%. And the universe would never be the same.